All right. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. I think this might work a little better. Hold on.
Yep. I hear you.
All
That
right.
came in even better.
All right. Good morning, all. We are here again with another episode, and our episodes get trickier and trickier. So this episode really challenges some of the patterns of the African American community, but the community overall. And today we're just bringing up this issue of do we like ourselves as Black folk? And when I mean that, I don't mean do we like who we see in the mirror. I mean, do we like who I see next door? Do I want them to look like me, or do I want them to look very, very different? One of the biggest complaints and the issues that is taking place throughout the uh, the community, and some of the discussions that used to go on for a long time, I haven't heard them, but they're starting to rise back up, is what we call brown flight. And so before we get into that, my name is Stan Archie, and I am with
Darren Fulcher. I thought you were going to say, your who you're with before I asked.
no.
Darren
Mhm.
Fulcher, and I always begin that I am a father, um, sibling, and a friend to many, and I love the Word of God.
All right. All right. And so, um, we are. There was a time when, especially during my early years when I was growing up, that one thing that we were very segregated. I remember moving to Kansas City, not in detail, but as a kid in general, and there was a very healthy, robust Black community that had a mix of all kinds of people in it. We
Okay.
used to go down to 12th Street, 12th and Vine, down there, the Minute Circle, where we partied all the time down there. There was barbecue on the streets. During the time, Gates used to open up its doors and the music would blast and people would hang out in the streets. 18th and Vine, we moved down there, was a very busy district. And it was, and when I say all kinds of Black people, I mean our principals, our teachers, our lawyers, our doctors, everybody, you would see them in the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And then they opened up the door for us to begin to move south or out of the Black community. And, um, and of course, the red lines were still there. So you kind of filtered who could move out, and you wanted to keep certain people from moving into other neighborhoods. And what we found is when that began to happen, then a lot of Black people chose to go a different direction and move away from their own people. And most of those people who moved away were professionals because those were the people who they opened the door to. Then we saw Black doctors who had more white patients than they had Black patients, and you had and so some of the things that were unique to us could no longer be kind of measured because the patterns had gone. What I mean is, like, for example, if I have 100 Black, if I let's say if I have 100 clients and I have 80% of those clients are Black, then I'm going to see Black patterns, and I'm going to be able to do Black research. I'm going to be able to do all those different kinds of things.
Yeah, but isn't research?
No, because research was not done to understand really the Black, because research wasn't done by Black. I mean, even when I tried to do dissertations and all that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
they dictated to me, the IRB, International um, Review Board, they dictated to me. Like some of my dissertations, my work and that my printed work was on my research. It was genuine research. It fit all of the standards of research. But what they wanted me to do is if I did a study on black people, black men, for example, they would say, well, you should expand it to include LGBT people and other minorities because they did not want minority information uniquely to be,
Okay.
yeah. And so, but I did notice that like some of the doctors that stayed working predominantly with blacks were able to, like, you want to get one of those guys to treat you because the things that were unique to black, they knew, especially people like dermatologists. You had dentists. There was just a very different understanding because there was a respect for the culture that disappeared when most of their clientele became.
But because you move out of a black neighborhood, that means you don't have respect and honor for black people.
But I think
I
that
mean,
it's
and so I think that that is maybe short sighted. I mean, it's limiting people.
well, I think that, and I don't think
You
that
know.
you have limits. I think you choose your options. I think John Perkins. You remember John Perkins, right, from Chicago?
Okay.
He so he did a lot of work on, and his work was uniquely on the black church. If you're going to
Okay.
minister in the black community, then just like if you're going to be a missionary in some foreign country,
hmm
then you should move and live amongst the people.
Okay.
And what black, and his complaint was that black churches are being pastored by people who don't live the same experience as them. And so his uniquely, but his missional thesis, I
But do
would
you think?
say,
But do you think David lived the same life of the average Israeli? I mean,
yeah, I think David.
are
Well,
prophets?
let
I
me
mean,
answer that. I think David, as a warrior, David was on the front line with his people all the time. He was a
yeah,
warrior, and that's what he did. When he wasn't, he was looking at Bathsheba.
yeah,
Uh,
but he didn't live the same life.
yes, he did.
He
David lived
he
most of
didn't
his
fought,
life at
but
war,
yeah, but he fought the same battles, but it still
and
wasn't
he
the
was on the
same.
front line of the battle.
He was a king.
In
Okay,
in those
so
days, in
okay,
those days, the leader went with the troops.
true.
So that's probably not
So
the best example.
yeah,
With Jesus, did Jesus live amongst people he was ministering to? Well, yeah.
yes,
Did
but
the Pharisees? No. Uh,
okay, but listen. So
let's
so
suppose Jonah would
in
have
order to
just.
say it, in order
Let's
to
suppose Jonah
pastor
would have said,
someone,
let me just send a letter over there, or let me commute, and I swing over there every now and then." No, it's
no,
just
but my point of this is that in order to pastor somebody, you have to live in the community. That I mean, I'm just asking.
well, I'm just no. I was highlighting John Perkins'
Okay.
thesis, which I don't disagree with because I mean he was pretty much effective, and he modeled that in Lawndale community in Chicago, because Lawndale community was a pretty rough community, and he was saying, well, I mean, God don't shine a light and put it under a bushel, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the bushel was in suburbs, and so so his argument was, you got to be amongst the people to be the light. You got to be amongst people to be in the light. So his integrating Christianity into the spaces where you minister was a landmark principle of missions, except for in the United States. And that was his bigger argument. Um,
Except for in the United States.
right. In the United States, we don't think of mission in the same way. Like
You don't.
if I'm going to
Domestic missions, for instance.
a method of missions.
You know, at home.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we
Okay.
just say I'm going to minister to, like if I say I'm going to minister to, and I think that we do it. I know there was a guy who I saw, really, really effective missionary. And
Mm-hmm.
he was missioning, he was a missionary to the Germans, and he moved there and served in Germany
Mm-hmm.
for a while. Then he went to uh, eventually came down to the African Americans, and he ministered to the African Americans, but he didn't live in the hood with the African Americans. Now, I didn't think anything about that until he started ministering to immigrants, and he moved to an immigrant neighborhood,
Okay.
and I just thought, wait a minute. I mean, that was kind
Mm-hmm.
of when it dawned on me. I mean, I don't think I ever said anything to him directly, but I just thought it was odd that he moved his family into an immigrant neighborhood and they associated with the people and they were their neighbors and all this kind of stuff. The same way he did in Germany, he just didn't do it with the African Americans.
And I would say this:
Mhm.
if you grew up in the United States, the social, cultural institutions are anti-black. And so when you're talking about self-hatred, I think black people are anti-black as well.
Mhm.
How we treat each other.
Okay, so where does the Salt and Light come from?
Well, I
Outside the
think
community?
I think um so the very people that sometimes get attacked, the leaders or the doctors or lawyers, whoever, those are the people usually on the front line.
There are those who, now I would say, because when I first opened up my business, one of my businesses, I opened it up in two locations. I mean, one of them on 63rd Street, and the other office was in Olathe.
Mm-hmm.
And my clientele was very different in Olathe than it was here in the inner city.
Mm-hmm.
And and I would just have to say that it did have an influence on my expertise as a professional.
How so?
Well, because part of what you do is your research. Really, if you're in an active profession, then your research, your learning, your expertise is usually built based on your experience in addition to your research. And most of your research is to be driven to serve the clients that you work. Like, for example, now I serve I mean, I got a mixed group, but most of
Mm-hmm.
the time, my clients are, you know, like some of my corporate clients and some of those in the consulting world. Then and politics is, a lot of them have some affiliation with politics. I'm a human behavioral specialist and consultant, and so I do a lot of research on understanding the political flows of things, and I do a lot of research on human behavioral science. But a lot of my human behavioral science now has is the research is bent towards African Americans because the majority of my clients, I got to be able to be better equipped to serve the clients that I serve. And so, therefore, I do, as a professional, a lot of work on the research that impacts us because that's who I had to be best for. Now,
Yeah,
when I was out in Olathe, I had, I give you a great example. So I had an Asian client come in and connect with me.
mm-hmm.
And, you know, after my first initial conversation, which went really well, I said, in order for me the best I can be for them, I got to dig into the old aging culture and understand what that person's dynamics are in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a ton of research on that. Had that Asian guy hadn't walked in, I wouldn't have did that research. I am responding to my clients so that I can be the best I can be for them. Now, if my client, when I was in Olathe, if I would have closed the inner city office and just opened the Olathe office, I guarantee you all my research would have been centered around Caucasian people because that was my clientele base. And you can ask any doctor or dentist or whatever the case of matter is, you are going to those who have research as a in their back pocket. If you're a consultant, if you are any of those kind of things, then you have to do the research so that you can be the best you can be to your present clientele.
Okay. So how does this play into our topic today?
Because when we were like, for example, dermatology, I use that for one. We had a
Okay.
dermatologist that really was one of the last dermatologists that were around there. I can't think of his name. He's an older guy. This guy, when you walked in as a black person, he did all his research on most of his clientele. He stayed in the black community. All his clientele was black.
He
That
could have done
guy,
his research. Okay, so but did he
so
live in the black community?
yes, lived in
Okay,
Sheraton Estates.
all right.
And this, you could walk in the door, he could look at you and tell you, okay, these are the things you need, these are the things you do not need, these things work differently on black skin. Because the because he was an expert at his primary clientele.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're an attorney. I know an attorney who, when he was living in the community, this is interesting. When he was living in the community down here,
Mm-hmm.
in the community, he understood all the dynamics of what most black people have to go through. And when it comes to from the being criminal justice involved all the way through the process, and he knew the law, and the law is the law, but he understood the application of the law and the dynamics he had to fight in the black community. Now, here's the deal. Let
But
me
you don't
finish.
think
Let me
you
finish.
can
And,
understand
th-
that
and then he
and live
moved
in it?
out. Then he
Yeah.
moved
Okay.
out,
Mm-hmm.
and then he moved back into what's the Beacon Hill.
Okay.
And so when he moved back into Beacon Hill, now the Beacon Hill is pretty white actually, but
Yeah.
he was in the community where he faced some of the same dynamics as his clients.
You-
And just because he was African American in an African American community, and these are his words. I wish I could bring him on there. I don't want to say his name because I didn't get his permission. But he said, "I am a better lawyer to the people I serve because they live next door."
See, I don't even see that because
That's what he said.
because as an African American,
Mhm,
you understand our unique experience and trauma that we deal with on a daily basis.
mhm.
Um, and to understand that that has nothing to do with where you live.
It has
That's to do
everything to
with
do with it.
no, it has to do with your shared experience.
Right, but your shared experience is different. So you said the same thing. Your shared experience is different
Right.
because the strategies, like
And
I would say this: how many how many people understood what, let's say, especially if you're in this arena of business and trying to promote the black community, all that kind of stuff. Now, you really don't understand what it means when they try to move Cleaver out of our community because you don't understand the day-to-day impact
well,
of his
I
contribution to our walk.
but you don't have to live in the community to be in a. I understand that. I understand
But
the significance of
now you understand that, but
struggle and
you
the
live
fight.
in his district, don't you? Well, you
I
live in the
did.
district before they
No,
gerrymandered
no,
you.
yeah, they changed, and it's the craziest thing. I'm in the fourth district now.
Right. And see, and really
That
that
is the
district,
craziest. Hmm.
well, because most of the people in your district understood and they were very much on board with the significance of his contribution to the fifth district because you lived in the fifth
Yeah.
district.
Yes.
And so now they got y'all all the way out to Clinton, Missouri somewhere.
Yeah.
Uh, because they didn't want, because even the white people in the community of the fifth district appreciated the contribution of the congressman and what
Yes.
difference he was making in the community. It didn't matter what their race was; it mattered what their geography was.
Yes.
Now, when I talk to people who didn't live in the fifth district, and this is happening to us, they're saying, "What difference does it make as long as you have?" They don't even feel like this gerrymandering issue is a big issue because where they live, it's not impacting them. Where they live, they're not getting congressional disenfranchisement, having somebody to fight for them. You know, they don't know who Alan Wheat was. They don't know, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you can just go down the list.
Yeah, but that's the story of America.
But that is,
Disenfranchising.
no.
black people from voting.
disenfranchising black people from participating in the
Yes,
decision making journey.
from voting
And
everything.
then and
That's
then when
American.
and then when I got asked to serve on the state board, there were a couple of things that I noticed. First of all, young black guy,
Mm-hmm.
I was thrown into this element where nobody in that world had any inkling of what our experience was like. Nobody around that table. Like the things that I brought up and recognized were invisible to most of the decision makers that were there. And the same thing was true. I had to at first represent both Kansas City and St. Louis and I had to go to St. Louis and spend some time down there and get to understand their cultural dynamic because it was different from ours. But in the discovery of the skewed map test process,
Mm-hmm.
which was which was which made me an enemy. First of all, they didn't think, I don't know, it just seemed obvious, but nobody ever said anything about it. But they didn't think I was supposed to play the game,
Okay.
and you know, even those who called me in the room and threatened me that I should let this go or not push for change, I think had I not pushed for change and just kind of went along with them, then Hickman Mills would not have their accreditation. Kansas City would not have their accreditation. Columbia, Missouri would not have their accreditation. St. Louis would not have their accreditation. Ferguson, all those places just wouldn't have it because the strategy was to make those districts go away in terms of their credibility, and
Oh,
and to bring in charter schools that would, in their mind, charter schools were supposed to deteriorate the districts.
mm-hmm.
And so now I was pro charter school, but I was pro charter
Every
school linked with um,
but ever since integration, there's been an attack on the public school system.
it's very, you got to sit in the room, bro. Let me tell you something. It
Okay.
is, and you know some of the things I've told you, more things that
Mm-hmm.
I probably shouldn't say publicly for my own safety. But but man, it was. I mean, this was gangster, and it was very intentional. We are going to destroy these folks, and I'll tell you this: won't say who said it publicly, but I would say people that are professionals and people that you know, people who are elected, basically
Mm-hmm.
told me in a room that I said, well, if we want equality, then we're gonna have to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We can't keep doing this because it's
Mm-hmm.
intentional disenfranchising these people. And they
Yes.
said, what makes you think we want equality? And they said, listen, if we have to eat, if we get to eat steak, we don't mind y'all having a little chicken. But if we have to eat chicken, then y'all ain't getting a word that I shouldn't say. Now,
Mm-hmm.
and so here's the deal. After you get the threats, and I was outnumbered. I mean, I wasn't gonna be no fool and start, trying to deal with that situation. So I went and asked a good friend of mine who knows the rich white guy, very, very good brother. I said, man, are these people for real? He said, brother, let me tell you this. He said, you need to really sit down and figure out whether you want to whether this is worth you dying for, um, because these people will make you disappear and it will be an accident. That was the threat. And then one of the guys told me, he says, you can say this. And if you say this in the media, if you go to the media, then you will be doing us a favor because will guarantee my reelection.
Mm.
Now, there were some people who were like, we brought in the guy from St. Louis, and we had some people that were involved with our world who
Mm-hmm.
understood the politics of the whole things and the dynamics, who were very abreast of what was going on and could contribute to the discussion. It wasn't that. Um, he wasn't willing to go as far as I was willing to go. And so, and for me, I grew up dyslexic, right? And so when I first moved over to Southwest in the integration piece, and one of the teachers was saying, "I think I know what's wrong with you. Like you're not special. I forgot what he called me, whatever. But he
Special
said, but you're
ed.
not. I was in I was in a special reading class and all this kind of stuff, whatever. But he said that's not what the problem is because you know this stuff, and so he used to let me get up and do and present my papers in front of the class
Mm-hmm.
because that was better than me trying to turn it in or read it. And
Okay.
so, but I always had this teacher, and it was always a male, who recognized the issue, but they didn't really have a name for dyslexia at that time. And
Okay.
so, what he suggested was that I get tested by the school board. And the school board was like, "We are not testing African Americans." This is exactly what I was saying. And so, this guy was insistent. So, he took me and my mama to a school board meeting and guy, I mean, and mom and I was looking at this guy like, what is with this fella? This guy just.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was fighting the fight. I didn't even know we were fighting. My mom didn't know we was fighting, and so because we didn't know the deal with this testing and what it could do and what opportunities it offer. But
Mm-hmm.
we went through all that stuff. I didn't get tested till I was getting ready to go into my senior year. And so that was when they sort of opened the door and they tested, and then yeah, you got dyslexia. And then I took further tests and realized what it was. But I learned from that guy, that teacher, that what I saw was different from what everybody else saw. And he understood that because they started migrating black people over to
Yeah,
the
but was
to
that
the
teacher
area
white or
we.
black?
He was white.
Did he
He's right.
live
The
in the
first teacher
community?
was the
So he
first teacher was
recognized.
well. Let me finish. The first teacher was Mr. Lumpkin. So Mr. Lumpkin
Okay.
was in ele. He was in JJ Persian. He was JJ Persian teacher. Second
Okay.
teacher was at Southeast Junior, and he
Okay.
said, and then the next teacher was Miss Scott, and then it was this guy Dylan. And so with this guy, he was like an advocate. But what happened is all these black people started coming over to the school. And that was when he started saying, I'd see something different, the lived
Okay.
experience. Now, he lived in the community around the school. So he had to engage with black people in a very different way. But once he started engaging with black people, it seemed like to me, especially in hindsight, that he started really recognizing the disenfranchisement.
Okay. So, but well, that was about compassion and understanding, having
He was a
emotional
good teacher.
intelligence.
That was about being a good teacher.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, but the problem was distant. He only could become an advocate for us when he became engaged with our lives.
But that was okay. But you don't have to live in the community to be engaged.
I think that I would say this: most of the pastors, going back to church, who moved out
Okay.
to, even when they moved their churches out to the suburbs to be able to they moved where the money went. When the people went there, they started moving there. As people migrated, they went with the people. And whether that was their biblical mission or whether it was, I don't know what the
Mm-hmm.
motivation was. So I don't want to bring criticism to that motivation. I would give them credit for
Mm-hmm.
that. I do know that their effectiveness on the issues that people who still lived in the hood, like when we start talking about recidivism, decreasing recidivism, we start talking about reentry, we start talking about all that kind of stuff. That wasn't an issue with them anymore. They started saying, just love Jesus. Whereas when they were in the hood, they understood the plot of the community a little more and what light and salt looked like. Their discipleship models were different. There was a brother who I was talking to last night. His discipleship model is like when we start talking about the battles that we face, he just said, "Man, our primary mission is to go to bring more people to church." And I was like, "Well, look, you got to understand the huddle is not the game." you know, so having more people in the huddle does not mean you're impactful in the game.
True.
So your goal is to have people more, and really think about this: the people who God used to make major change in society were Daniel, for example. I
Okay.
mean, Daniel. This is a fascinating situation. Daniel's job was he was working for the government,
Yes.
and so he wasn't a preacher or anything. I mean, he just worked for the government, and he did so well. He was so biblical that what his boss got to see was a a believer who was not from their culture and community
Same with
migrate into
Joseph.
their community, right? Yeah, and become and promote that guy,
Mm-hmm.
Nehemiah. Nehemiah worked for the
Hmm.
Persian leader,
Yes.
so. But whenever they started to minister to their people, what's the first thing they did? Daniel was working amongst the people, so he was a little different. He was engaged in Babylon, but what Nehemiah did was he went down to rebuild the wall.
Yeah, he was there
He got
with
a
them.
he got a leave of absence to go down and be amongst the people to be able to drive that home.
Yeah, but
Uh,
they still didn't live amongst the people.
Nehemiah,
Yeah, I'm just saying.
well, he went down
Like
and he
Daniel
took
did
a leave
not.
of
I mean,
absence,
Daniel was a part of the king's court.
right? But the people weren't segregated in that way. So they had 120 satires, and then they had three chief administrators, of which Daniel was one of them. And
Hmm.
then the discussion was, I want Daniel to be in charge of everybody. So I guess what
Yeah,
he was going to do
he's
is,
second in charge. He's second in
right,
charge.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and threw him in the lion's den. But the idea was God's choosing to use somebody who can integrate into that community and change it. But I would probably say all of our people who are trying to move a stone's throw away and then reach back into the community, especially for issues of civil rights. That's why our representatives have to live in the community they represent. When we divided the school districts up,
Hmm.
and we now have people who represent students that don't live around them in that school district right now,
Really?
because because we start busing the kids away from the person. Like
Okay.
once upon a time, when I was growing up, the school district person lived down the street. And so when we had community meetings, the school district person was in the community meetings because that's your community, because your kids went there, because,
Hmm.
your neighbors mattered. And then you could go knock on their door. Matter of fact, Mr. Hare lived in Citadel. I mean, lived in Sheraton.
Okay.
Dr. Clark lived in Sheraton. I mean, all of those
Really?
guys lived, yeah. So they were in our community, and you saw them at the grocery store. And so, therefore, their influence was very, very different. So,
Well,
this
what?
drive to escape the community,
I don't think
eh,
it's a drive to escape.
listen to this is one person that is always accused of, and the conservative position that they have. I don't want to focus as much on that as
Okay.
So let's listen to
It's a
her.
broken culture, it's a broken society, and hip hop is hurting things. But I also want to talk to you about something I've realized. Even if Black Americans are aware and know their history, right? And you can get Black conservatives who understand the history much more, who understand, the ills of the left and what the left has done. But still, in that regard, they bring to the conservative side the same bad habits that I was hoping Black conservatives would be abandoning. And what I'm talking about, number one, is conflict resolution. Black Americans do not know how to resolve basic conflicts. everything has to turn into a fight. I hate you forever. You got to draw lines. It's like you're this gang or that gang. And you still see it happening in politics. It's a broken
So,
culture.
your thoughts?
I, that's the craziest thing ever. Okay. Um,
Now, why do you
confrontation.
think she has that perspective? Now, I don't know, Candace, but
I don't know why. I think I can't get into psychology, the psychology of Candace.
I tell you,
Oh,
my assumption is this: she live in a white community. She had a white husband. She lives amongst a white, not conservative, not just
yeah,
her conservative positions, because those are her positions, but it's
but she's unique.
proximity.
But she's
She's
unique.
unique.
And she was before she had a white husband. She was this way. Before she, I mean, she grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood. Um, she is unique and
Unique. Explain unique.
different. Not she's not the normal black person.
Normal
The
black
normal.
person.
I
Okay.
mean, she's just not. I mean, she is. To say that black culture is broken because you don't have conflict resolution.
She
Um,
said it always ends up in a
the
fight.
fight, but that's her experience with her mom and her daddy. Whatever she's talking about, that is her experience
And so
because
now
someone hasn't
that
given someone
that
hasn't.
is that is what we look like from her balcony. Now, here's the deal. I have never seen fight um, unfair fighting. Um, the dirt and the venom of hatred. You know how we grew up. Like we grew up in the
Mhm.
hood. I've never seen in the gang violence, in the street violence, in the fighting on the streets, and all this kind of stuff. I've never seen the kind of venom, hatred, and disregard for humanity that I've seen amongst those who are in politics or those who are in business. And most of those folks at the places where I have been are not black people. I've never seen it in the hood. In fact, the hatred is so generalized. Like me and you might get into a fight, and even if we were street guys, we get into a fight, and me and you might shoot at each other. But I'm not trying to kill like everybody in your neighborhood. I'm not trying to go up to your school and blow up people. I'm not generalizing my hatred for you because of some offense to categorize that hatred towards a group of people and have the passionate hate that some people have in general. And I'm talking about church folk. I mean,
Well,
I remember
even though
going
the
to this
jokes.
friend of
Well,
mine who I said, rich white guy. He's a really good brother. Going to him, and
hmm
he and he told me, he said, when he was telling me about it, I was flabbergasted. But it's the history. Like to right now say, I am going to cut off the prescription medication. This is our current administration. Cut off the prescription medication for those receiving Medicaid, which means, Medicaid is kind of correlates with age. And most of the people who are on Medicaid are taking some kind of medication, and most of it is
hmm
life saving medication.
hmm
And to target that, I mean, that's a brutal kind of hate that,
they're
you know.
targeting Head Start, and Head Start is known to be one of the greatest equalizers of education that we have.
And so I fought for, when I was on the board, I fought for and got passed um, the pre-K for all.
hmm
But when you sat in the room and listened to the arguments, it wasn't a political issue, it was a people issue.
I don't understand it.
We don't want them, just like that guy said.
hmm
We'll give them some chicken if we eating steak.
I just the concept of um, us versus them um, is evident in everything that we have in this country. Um, so, so when we have a debate on if someone should be in a black community versus the white community, it's still a us versus them argument that we keep going back
Right,
to.
but the argument is not as if, like, if you're playing football and everybody has the same uniform and the uniform unites us, then you can be on your side of the field. But if they say to us, um, we're going to defeat you and keep you from making your touchdown. We're not going to join you and make you successful. Then you got to stay on your team. You can't just go wander around. Just like when we were in gangs. If we were in gangs, I can't just wander around in the neighborhood because you want to have peace. I got to recognize that their objective, they have venom, a venomous passion towards my suffering. When you hear them, let's remove DEI, let's remove what makes us equal, and let's stop counting, so that there will be no evidence, and we have the freedom to discriminate again. The removal of the laws that defeated and went against, um, supremacy, that went against segregation, that went against all this kind of stuff. It's not. It's not blood. I'm trying to target these people. And here's the deal: when our community was black, our problem with the police, we had people on the beats, we had police that we knew.
Well,
Our
we still
problem
have
with the
problems with
police,
police.
our problem with the police was very, very different. When we dealt with all those Joe Wellington and all those guys who used to work our beat in the neighborhood, those guys used to come sit on the porch and have conversations with us. Them guys used to come. Now, when
They didn't
we
live in the
first moved out
community,
there,
and I still think they thought of
yeah,
us as
well, they
self-eating.
didn't live in our community. They had to live in Kansas City.
Yes.
And those guys, I mean, Joe Wellington became a great friend of mine. He probably arrested me more than anybody else.
Mm,
Uh, Matter of fact, when I straightened up and became a chaplain, I wanted to do work with him because
okay.
I felt like his efforts were really resolving the crime in the community. It was just that I was a criminal in the community. So my relationship with him was that. But you may have many times that guy rescued me while I was being beat up by some junior cop that was out there on Purcell, on the ground, being kicked around. And I hear Joe Wellington's voice. And I look at man, so this is my hero. This brother coming to get me out because he was the officer that was fair. Um, but he was in the neighborhood a lot.
Well, but the point of it is he didn't live in a neighborhood, but he could still understand the neighborhood and not live in it.
And he put it this way: he came more closer to living it than anybody else. I mean, he didn't live around the corner, but we was his
Yeah.
beat.
So
We was
so
his
so
people.
you but
So when they removed the
so you can
beats,
be your
but
people. They can be your people and not, and you don't have to live there.
I, I I think when they got rid of beats, the police, and they started rotating people around,
Hmm.
you lost the community connection.
Okay, that's fair, but
But that was he was
those police
one.
officers didn't necessarily live in the community, but they had
He
a
was
connection to the community.
he was 8 to 10 hours in the community every day. Now,
Okay,
when you moved him away from that, and his association, his connection with the community went away, we started having Rodney King and Floyd, Floyd kind of stuff
those were
happen.
always going on, and even more
But there
so.
was, but when they used to beat us, the neck on the neck. I remember one time you remember when Burger Deluxe was on the corner of 75th and Truce.
Burger Deluxe. I thought it was um, Wimpy Burger. There was Wimpy Burger.
No, it was Burger Deluxe right there on the
Okay,
corner.
all
It was
right.
a
I know
black
what you're
man who
talking about.
owned it,
Okay,
right? Yeah.
okay.
And so we got they got robbed one day. And so
Mm-hmm.
we was around the Bugs house. So we got a call from Lisa, who was working up there. And so she was crying, all this kind of stuff. So me, Harv, and Bug, we walk up there. We walk up there just to see our people. Now we walked up on the place. It was right there on the
Mm-hmm.
corner. And the police showed up, man, and pulled out the guns and, and made us get down on the ground. It was like rainy. And we was down on the ground and, the dude's boot, the cop's boot on my neck. I'm laying down there, the water from
Yeah, from yeah.
and so all of us down on the ground, but they got the guns on us. And Lisa and them came out and was like, that's not them. Those are our boyfriends, and made them get back in there, whatever the case of the matter is. I heard Joe's voice. Why are these guys down there? Let them up. We let them up, and then we did all kinds of stuff, whatever the case of the matter is. I mean, he understood. He knew us. He knew the community because he spent, again, 8 to 10 hours a day for 5 days a week in the community. Now, had he lived
But
there,
that's my but that's my point. My point of it is that you can have a connection to community and have
but it
love for the
was
community, compassion for the community, and not necessarily have to live your residence in the community.
his residence wasn't there,
Yeah,
but he spent more time
but he
there.
had a heart for the community. I
He
mean,
spent more
so that's
time
my
there than he
point.
did at home. I'm saying that the guy from Cleaver understood the dynamics of the community because he grew up in the community. He lived in the community.
Okay,
You have, I mean, it is to me, I think it's a big deal. I think you can't,
I
you
just
can't, what do you call it?
I'm
Commute.
yeah,
So
but
that's our biggest problem with now when they were trying to get it so the police could live outside the community.
mm-hmm.
Then you now have people who don't know us. They don't know our plight. They don't know our issues. When you see things, you don't know what's going on. We don't. Pastors who pastor from a distance will do things like they'll teach acts without talking about the economic impact. They'll teach the development of the church age and their challenges without talking about the social dynamics that they had to go through. They would talk about, they'll teach you the history of the Bible without giving you the context and its application to how we live today. They'll
Oh,
talk about single mothers um, as a statistic rather than talk about them in the experience.
yeah, but
Single
you can live in the
mother.
community and do the same thing.
It's very rare that when it's a part of your life, you will miss what the people around you who are living through. To
And
tell
and, and
somebody
still
that
and still my issue is this.
Mhm.
Proximity doesn't mean that you're going to have compassion and care.
Proximity, I would say distance means that you won't.
No, a distance does not necessarily mean
And
that.
distance
And
means that the
so,
way you do it. That's why we go to Mexico to minister to Mexico. That's
okay,
why
but
I
my
went on mission
feeling
trips
is
all those times.
my
When I got
issue
there on the mission field,
is that black
mhm,
people can be as mean to each other as people are to us sometimes.
right, and I would say, and here's
And
what I
if you
would
live in
say
the
is
community, that don't mean that doesn't
that
mean that
now
you're gonna
that's
have
where I would disagree. So I would
okay.
agree that you can be as mean to us as as other people do if you're a black person and you're not in the black experience.
They can be the black experience and still
No,
um
if you
yeah. So
if
so so
I would just say
so
even if
how do you justify then um young gang members that will ravish their neighborhood and they have an experience, they have a shared experience, but they
you
still do these things
right. So here's the difference between my
to the
argument and
neighborhood.
yours is you think I'm trying to say that if you live in a neighborhood you won't be bad. And I'm saying if you
No,
live out of
you're
the
saying
neighborhood, your contribution and your understanding is going to be limited. So there's two different issues. I think that people who have, I would say this, if you're in the neighborhood
Mm-hmm.
and Tyrone is destroying the neighborhood, you will understand what need to be addressed and how we need to deal with Tyrone. If you're out of the neighborhood, you will just see a thug.
Not necessarily. So
That's
that's
what
what I'm saying. Yeah,
that's the
I
way it
don't
is.
know because you don't see a thug just because it's Tyrone.
Right. You see a thug because you have no idea what Tyrone, you have no relationship to
You
Tyrone's
may not even
every
see a thug. You may
experience.
see shared trauma experience,
Right. But it won't be shared.
but it could have been shared because just
It'll be from a
because
distance.
you're not because you're not there right now, that don't mean you don't identify with Tyrone. That don't mean you don't have compassion for Tyrone.
You have compassion for Tyrone, but your solution is Tyrone, you will say, like for example, I had a guy who I worked with him to start a ministry on financial education.
Okay.
And when we started the ministry, he was very involved in the Black church. He was very involved in Black communities and everything else. And this whole model of financial literacy was very different because he began to recognize that, man, we're getting turned up. I mean, we're getting blood out of a turnip in this bad boy. And he had good
Mm-hmm.
strategy and strategy very, very different. And then as his ministry grew, he, changed churches um, and started working with different clientele and pulled together some different ministry, different connections and everything else. And a few years later, I called him up and said, "Hey, we're going to do a uh, literacy education deal, blah, blah, blah." We pulled together. I looked at his
Mm-hmm.
curriculum. His curriculum was inapplicable to the community
I, how financial literacy? How is that? I can
because it had
understand.
because the privilege, the suggestions that he had and the guidance that he was given were privilege centered. The community that he was in had access,
Okay.
opportunity, and things of that nature that the other community want. I've seen people teach, go try to teach like job, and the assumption is that everybody in the room had internet, everybody in the room had computers, everybody in the room, and so they taught it from a space where you know. And so the people started asking questions. Okay, well, I got to do this during the day when the library is open, and I need somebody to help me with. I mean, the normal things that happen in the community was left out of the whole workshop, and so it was
So
great information, but it's not applicable to that community. And that's
okay.
because the teacher, the facilitator, didn't study the community, nor was he from the
Yeah,
community that he was trying to
but you don't
impact.
have to be from the community to study the community, understand the
But you
unique
got to
needs of
know
the
what you got
community.
to study. You got to know what you
Yeah.
got to study.
But living here does not mean you don't care for people and you can identify with people and love them.
I'm not saying that I'm not, you're talking about your feelings and your commitment. I'm
No,
talking
I'm
about your
talking. Yeah,
ability to be
my
effective.
commitment more than anything else.
Well, your ability to be effective.
Yeah, your ability to be effective with those people has is about compassion and understanding
It's
who and
about,
what they are.
but I would say that there are some doctors that I work with who have compassion and all that kind of stuff. And they're ready to
Hmm.
come down and do some stuff with the community. We had a health fair and we was putting together, we was working with Lifeline. I don't know if you know Lifeline, but Lifeline checks to see if you're about to have stroke, blood pressure. I mean, it
Okay.
checks a stroke and heart
Hmm.
attack and all that stuff. And we know that a lot of people in the hood don't get to see a doctor on a regular basis. And we, these screenings, Lifeline screenings are, and so I called them and I said, why aren't you ever in these zip codes? And they said, because we can't get the people to come. And so I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, we want to partner with you. And this was interesting because we partnered with them and we told them how many people that would come, that we were registering people because your method
Okay.
of registering don't reach our people. So they thought, well, this is how you do it. So we had to go through huge hoops to be able to get our people registered because the pathway to registering was inapplicable to the general community that we were trying to serve. And so we were trying to register them. They would say, well, you can't register them because HIPAA violations. And I mean, we had all of these, they had policies in place. And I was saying, let's get permission, let's get release of information, let's get all this stuff we need. So we had a lot of things we had to do to get them registered. And then when they got here, they came down there with the plan of working from 8 to noon and they sent half their crew because their
Okay.
assumption was there is no way you can get that many people from that zip code. And what ended up happening is we had they had to stay later, so they stayed and worked till like 4 or 5. So they had to convince all these people to work overtime when they wasn't planning it. We had almost, I mean, 50, 60 people who we had to give vouchers to come back and get it done later because they just didn't believe that many people would come in for a health fair. What the issue is they're offering a critical a critical
Need.
service to our
Yeah.
people, and it meets a critical need. Their distance, and they have great effort and a great passion. Their distance from who we are as a community means that the pathway and the application of this offering is incompatible with the people that we're trying to reach, and so therefore it would have been a massive disaster. So now here's the deal. So a year later, they called us and said they went. And so what we had to do was we had to get these vouchers to these people, and they said, well, just give them a voucher and have them to come to one of our other places. It's not going to work like that for them.
Mm-hmm.
So we was 6, 8 months trying to get people to go ahead and get their blood pressure registered. I mean their safety screening
Mm-hmm.
done. So now then they called us next year and said we want to do it, and you know we felt like last time our agreement and a lot of things that we did, we kind of stretched because you were trying to get release of information out, you were trying
Mm-hmm.
to get paperwork. They were not really suited for what we were trying to do. But this time they wanted to do it without us, but with our love and support. So we said, okay, we'll help you spread the word. You can use our facility, you can do all this kind of stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
you can do it your way. So a week before the event took place, they called us and canceled because of lack of participation. Now, the problem is you're so far away from the reality that you're trying to impact
Okay.
that you just don't understand. You got a great idea. The same thing with financial literacy, the same thing with all these, like right now, our approach in defining moments, which anybody who wants to support the defining moments, we are a ministry that gives free health care, but it's Christian based health care to people who can't afford it, predominantly those who are in the urban communities and can't afford the service. Um, and you can support people. So I'll talk about that a little bit more, and I'll talk about the books and the work that we do, whatever. But I'll probably hit Darren up to see if he wants to contribute to our to that ministry a little bit later. But the deal is that um, the application of the services that we offer yield yield a probably 30% better outcome in terms of lack of recidivism, a huge change to the person's life in terms of their ability to parent their children, raise their families, to be able to stay out of trouble, to be able to get a solid job, to be all those elements of life start to change a whole lot. Now, most of those folks have been to other services, but what they did not include, there were two things, is a real understanding of their predicament, the elements that affect their life. And the second thing is they didn't understand um, the other element is Christianity. So I do think that bringing spirituality to the does what regular mental health services can't do. So much of the credit goes to that. But I think some of it goes to the ability to understand and apply what we know in the mental health world to the people who are there. And I live amongst. I see it every day. It's in front of my face. I can see, and if I see something, I'm like, okay, as an expert in that particular area, or this
But
would
you don't have to
become,
live next door to give them
yeah, you do.
services and love them.
Yes, you can love them, but the
And then be
love
able, but
has no
you can
feet.
identify with them and not have to live. I
I
just,
disagree with that. I disagree with that. Let's do a couple more videos. I've been
all
talking
right.
a lot this time. I think you talked a lot last time. I'm talking a lot this time.
Hmm, yeah.
All right.
So they want to separate the smart and the elite black people from the regular and the normal black people and the average black people. So they extracted us from the black community and they separated us. That's what they did.
when black people, when there were some black people who had a certain amount of money and they wanted to leave and go into these other communities that were nicer, that happened to be white, they tried not to let them in. they weren't. We had to fight for the right to get in those neighborhoods. So who are you saying planned this?
The powers that be didn't want to separate us. I really believe that being from Atlanta and being from a black healthy community really changes and sculpted not just my perception, because I saw it for myself. And I realized, like, but do you know what? But do you know why they even allowed integration to begin with?
Why?
Or do you know what the driving force was?
What?
The driving force for integration was sports. When the white coaches were go to HBCUs, and they saw how dominant these basketball players were, these football players were, these baseball players were, they were like, we need one of them. I'm not sure if it was Duke or North Carolina, but one of the schools, I want to say, it could be Duke. If I'm wrong, I'll correct myself after. I want to say like Duke had won like the men's NCAA championship, and whoever the top black school was, they played them like in secret, just compare.
Oh.
And the black team killed them.
I never heard that.
It was like,
but I believe that.
It was like nigga, we need one of these. Then it happened in football.
We need one of these.
March 12, 1944. Two basketball teams gathered at a local Durham, North Carolina gym. A private match was held between two local universities. North Carolina Central is an all-black school, while Duke University was an all-white school. The Eagles coach John B. McClendon was a legendary figure at NC Central who led them to an incredible 19-1 record, while the medical team at Duke was said to be better than the senior varsity squad. These two groups met at the Eagles gym Sunday morning, as most of Durham was at church. Coach McClendon locked the doors as everyone settled, and the game started. It was one of the first integrated sporting events in the South. The Eagles easily won 88-44. Then they played another game.
All right.
I don't even know the point. I don't understand the point
Of his argument.
Yeah.
Well, he said that integration was planned. His perspective is integration was planned, not to bring people together, but it was planned because
Integration was. I mean, they fought against integration.
not now. Not the people.
White supremacists fought against it, and they're still fighting against it. It's their same fight.
But
They
the
never gave up.
structure, but the structure of integration. Like I remember when Coach McCarthy, because I was on that run with Promise Keepers, because Promise Keepers had amazing things to offer to the men in terms of accountability, connection, and it allowed black and white men to connect together, work together, and to talk about sort of the male challenges and the value that we could offer each other if we brought together with the black man and the white man and the Asian man and all that kind of stuff was going on. We could really synergize what was male issues and against anything else. So I thought it was a beautiful movement. Things took place, very involved, and went to all the rallies and all kind of stuff, spoke at some of the events. But I then began to understand sort of the unintended consequences. The biggest unintended consequences is that you gave black people, especially black men, permission to go to white churches, but you never gave white men and families permission to go to black churches. So it was okay to have a white pastor. It's not okay to have a black pastor. Now, and I would say that with this respect, because we did have and do have white members, and I mean white members that are were lawyers and doctors and all that kind of stuff, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So during that period of time, we were able to really experience a biblical integration that I thought was pretty solid as a ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do think that the what we work with now with Christ Community Church and some of the other cases is Christ Community began to recognize that. So when we first connected with Christ Community, they were in Leawood, and we were just ministering to the same group of people. So we got together to minister to people who were on 45th Street, created a rugby team and did a whole lot of
Mm-hmm.
other things. We did 2 or 3 blocks of Habitat Community. I mean, Habitat, we built houses together. We did all this kind of stuff together. Most of what we did was in the city. We did some teaching out there, but most of what we did practically was in the city. And then they began to understand that you can't, they can't effectively minister throughout the entire city from Leawood. And so they worked through us in partnership with us in a lot of different ways. But eventually they said, we need to break up into more campuses. And so they targeted the place that they were going to minister. And they did 2 things. They opened up a church there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they assigned a pastor who lived there. And I think it's a great model. I mean, Tom Nelson, one of my best friends in the world, just retired and passed on the ministry. He's actually training a guy named Gabe, was the downtown campus ministry. But the model that's there and the heart that Tom have of planting in the place that he had the missional concept together, but it just wasn't a missionary in you funding somebody in Mexico to minister to the people there, and somebody from Russia, and his ministry missionary perspective was the same overseas as it was in the city. That you can't mission just by sending money. You got to have somebody. You got to have boots on the ground, and that's the
Well,
same concept.
I believe this. Um, Discipleship, missions work is hand-to-hand combat. So you got to be close. So, but that's different than saying that you can't effectively represent the community and have compassion for the community and work for the community.
So you can have compassionate work,
So that's
but like here's our biggest problem. Like European missions went over and is the Tarzan effect. He made Tarzan go into Africa. He's a white man, and he gonna start organizing the colonies
mm-hmm.
in Africa, living in the woods, and then some white woman come over there because God forbid, he find a black wife. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's randomly Jane shows up somewhere in
Yeah.
Africa, lost, and he picks her up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just that's the missional concept is we're going to go and save these people. And I think modern missionaries start thinking about we need to train a leader over there and then let that leader lead. But that wasn't the concept of missions at first. I mean, we just need to go over and save these people because the perspective was we're the saviors and they are even Jesus came down and built some leaders. I mean, 3-year seminary, and then I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Because the people who live in the world are the people who can impact the world. You can't be salt from a distance. You can be light from a distance.
But
why are you thinking
but I think the issue is this. As Black people, we're not a monolith. I mean, we come in all shapes and sizes. And I mean, It's just
that
not all the same.
the condition. We're not talking about the people. We're talking about the conditions.
And
The
so we have
conditions
to
that
make
we all
room for
face.
people.
And I would tell you
We
that
have to make room for people to be in the community. Out. I mean, we have to be. We got to take
I
advantage of
think
all our resources.
I would say that your gifts, when you go out to the neighborhood meetings that you go to, that where changes take place, the what do you call it, homeowners association, is that that really drive what's better for the community. The grocery stores that you have to go to that are or not in your neighborhood, how the things that you need for everyday living are deteriorated. The mom and pop shops that get a chance to go there, the liquor stores that are there. If all those decisions are made by the people who live there, they will be very, very different. But if you have a person that says, "Well, I don't want that in my neighborhood," but y'all need something in y'all neighborhood, so therefore you come down and you support the 10 liquor stores, talking about they're giving people jobs, and you support all that stuff because you're not experiencing what the people are experiencing next door. You experience it from the balcony.
Yeah, but you could live in
Let's
the community and still have that same viewpoint.
you can live out of the if you live out of the community, then it's not touching you. Our teachers were way better. We had less opportunities and everything else, but our teachers were way better, way more effective when they lived around the corner and when our principal lived in Chariton Estates. And when we saw our principals, coaches, and everybody else at the same stores that we shopped at ourselves. I'm gonna play a
See,
video.
I never saw that. I never saw that.
Right, because integration affected your generation. But if you ask your
Yeah,
brother,
but
we saw it. Because I was with him. We would when we grew up
well,
together.
I went
The
to
person that
a
the
I
person
went to
that corrected
Marlboro that
me.
was right up the street. I walked to school every day.
When we moved out there, it was predominantly still white.
Yeah,
So
but I
you was with
walked to
white,
school every day. I
right?
walked to
But you
school.
walked in a white neighborhood to school every day. When we were on 56th Street and we walked, that's walking to school. That is walking to school in the black neighborhood. That is when
But our
our
teachers,
guys who still live
most
in
of my
the
teachers
community,
were black.
did they
Most of
live
my
in the
teachers were
community?
black.
And most of
So
my
I don't.
teachers were black during that period of time. But when you went to Marlboro, I bet you a lot of your teachers lived around the neighborhood.
I I I
They
can't say
didn't
they did
live
or
in
didn't.
they didn't
I
live
didn't
way
know
out of
that.
town and was coming in visiting with
I
us.
don't
And
know
I
where they
tell you,
lived.
being at the store and hearing the coach, Coach Mahone, tell me, boy, you better act like you got some sense because I'm goofing off in the store. That's my coach from school in my neighborhood. That was a big deal. Seeing Mr. Heron shop at the grocery store down there, that was a big deal. He was in the neighborhood because then he could understand and apply even his analogies to the reality that we were facing. I'm gonna play another video real quick.
So when you see like white people in your neighborhood, very disturbing how comfortable they are. A little uncomfortable to me for Caucasians to be more comfortable than I am in my own neighborhood.
There's a Detroit resident awfully upset that their hood has become a melting pot. I was told that these melting pots were great for all of these white neighborhoods, but I guess when white people move to Crenshaw, downtown Baltimore, or Detroit over here, I guess that's a big problem for all of the anti-racists out there.
Y'all, look at the white people. They 5 years from now, it's gonna be so different over here. I ain't never seen white folks in the hood before like this.
What's next? You're going to be upset when they mow their lawns? You're going to be upset when they bring jobs to this community? Holy hell.
Now, I was kind of with the guy that it's ridiculous that we would get mad that white people are here
Yes,
until
but
he
he's a
got to
race
the end.
baiter. Yeah. Okay.
When he got to the end and said, they are going, it takes them coming to our community for our line. My neighborhood, I feel bad when my lawn gets a little high, or if I got dandelions. I mean that it is not. But here's one of the other things. When you drove through Sheraton Estate, the thing was, I'm gonna make my lawn look like theirs in Sheraton Estates. Now I talk about
Okay.
Sheraton Estates because it was a suburban black, but it was
Hmm.
in the community where we can see it. And when we built this where I live now, the idea was that there were African Americans who did not want to go and live in a community, and really where you weren't welcome, and where you were distant from people who look and live like you. I wanted to be in a place where if I worked hard to demonstrate something different, I can contribute the life that I live and the things that I found value to some other kid who might not have had another father. I want them to see me go to work every day. I want them to come over and ask, "What do you do for a living?" I want all those
Yeah,
different kind
but
of things to take place, and
but
that's
those are
what
but
took
that's
place.
not but that's not going to happen in Citadel because
It
all the
did.
people that live in but Citadel, it's not like
We are
you're
surrounded
getting
by we're
you're
surrounded by
yeah.
Blue Hills apartments. We're surrounded by
Yeah,
Citadel
but
apartments. We're
the
surrounded
people
by
are not interacting with with
yes, they
them.
are. I probably mentored 30 to 50 kids just by having a basketball goal in my driveway. I had barbecue contests for these kids. They had never had. I was like, y'all don't know how barbecue? Oh shoot, come on, y'all. I used to have PlayStation battles in my basement with these kids. Right now, we have kids in this neighborhood who come over there, and we had a kid come by here and knock on the door and ask, "Was Grandma home?" Talking about my wife, and came in and sat down and had a conversation with her about something that was going on in his life or whatever. I mean, this is. I'm saying that yes,
Okay,
proximity matters. We got well, we went over
proximity
time.
matters, but it's not the only determining
I'm not saying
factor.
it's the only thing. You ever heard me
Okay,
say that? You ever
no,
heard me
I'm
say
just
it's the
saying.
only thing? I'm saying it is a thing. And I think many black people are in the sunken place. That's why I keep putting these up
Yeah, and, yeah.
there. And don't know it.
I just think proximity
And I would say this.
determining factor. And I think what ends up happening is like the video you gave me the other day is she was so short-sighted on the contributions Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton, even though I don't agree with them 100%, are rarely at all. But
Just
they've made a
fighting for the social.
but they made a contribution.
Right, but
And and
here's the thing, and we really need to. I wanted to parse that video out so that it wasn't so long, and then talk about it. But here's the context, just for those who are listening, and we are at a point we got to be able to wrap up because other meetings are waiting for us. But I would say that her argument was, and I listened to her and gave real consideration to her argument, was that when through the civil rights movements, we gain rights and we utilize those rights to abandon a generation. The generation that was impacted by, she didn't say AIDS, but I would throw in AIDS because AIDS was devastating to us, especially the church community. That was impacted by the crack community. That all those people who moved away, like if you go back and you look at our fight with LSD and our fight with Angel Dust, and all that kind of stuff. When we were kids, we were fighting that fight and we were saving each other because the fight was Larry next door. And we were helping the kids who were in families that were devastated by crack. On our
mhm,
block alone, we had people whose both parents were on crack, and we
yeah,
we gave them food. We helped take care of those
yes,
kids and all that stuff. And what her argument is that that didn't happen universally amongst black people. Black people wanted to get away from people with those problems because the civil rights gave us a window for us to be able to abandon our own. And so her argument is you left us. You came, even though you came back to church in our neighborhoods from your ivory tower, and then you left and you drove by us and went back to those places. That was her argument.
Yeah, I get what she's saying, but I think it's short sighted.
Well, I want to have a whole show on that. When that popped up, and I listened to
Yeah,
her
I think she's short sighted.
because the question
And
is did we abandon because we had some place to go? Mr. Herring couldn't leave during the time when the Sherm was out there, when the first version of Wet was out there and hit our people. We had to deal with it. We had to stay, and the best of our best. Our doctors had to deal with it. Other people had to deal with it. There are a lot of therapists, and there are a lot of professional mental health professionals that have chosen to go work with a different group of people because they don't want to deal with the problems that we need support in our community. That's why defining moments exist. Because so it's not just that people can't afford it, but it's that the door is closed. And many Christian people who have went out and got their license and became professionals in this profession go to places where people have different problems and more money. So we've abandoned, our professions have abandoned. And I'm talking about my profession itself. And it's, so we'll have a part 2 on this
okay,
and
yeah, we need
and
to do
talk about
that.
it a little bit more. And then maybe I won't talk so much next time. But we'll have, but I want to bring that video in. I just got to probably do some editing to it because it's pretty long, and then get clips of it where we can really talk. But I think her point is worth researching.
I think he's short sighted.
Okay, but I think it's worth researching, and I'll put in the work.
All right.
I'll put in the
Sounds
work
good.
to try to come up with something. So,
All right.
listen, folks, we appreciate you being with us today. I know we were a little long for those who are with us, but we'll be spiced out, and you'll see us in other places. Remember to connect with our YouTube channel, and I'm trying to get to this other video. There we go. Connect with our YouTube channel, join us, and become a part of Complex Conversations. You can join us live every Wednesday morning at 7:30. If you're not up, then connect with our channel so that you can go on and visit the conversations we've had. And we just appreciate you giving support to this mission.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Like, share, and subscribe.